Well, hello everyone and welcome in. A little delayed start here on the six screens today. I must say that I'm glad that we have a big audience coming in. We do have a guest coming in from the United Kingdom that will be telling her JW story on Anne Marie's program, Jehovah's Witnesses Share Their JW Story. But I'll just give you a little idea why we're a little late today. Early this morning, I had to rush my wife off to the medical center by ambulance. She had a very, very high heart rate all last night during the program. You probably saw me getting up and moving around and late into the night. But Susan got progressively worse this morning. I just came back from the hospital. I just spent 6 hours up there with her. And now she's going to be up there a while, might even be admitted, I'm not sure. But she had a very, very high heart rate. And so they're concerned about an infection. So she's there now, and she's doing fine right now, but we'll see what happens later on. So please keep Susan in your prayers. Well, let's bring Anne Marie on right now. Hello, Anne Marie.
Hello, my dear brother Rick. Happy Six Screen Sunday. I was so sorry to hear about our dear sister.
Yeah, so that was one of the elements last night. We had, as many were listening in, they saw that things were getting kind of little out of control here last night. I had to keep getting up and leaving and tending to her and making sure she had medication. And but this morning it was just too much for her. Her heart rate went up very, very high. Her pulse went into the danger zone. So I had to call an ambulance and get her up there. So she's up there right now, Anne Marie. Yep.
Rick, you are so amazing. I had that happen to me, but it was only once, and they thought I was going to die. So I know how serious. If the heart gets too fast, it could just it could be bad.
Oh yeah, no, it got up.
You were born
very, very high. It got up to 200 this morning. That's when I said, that's it. We got to get her up there. Yeah, that's very high. That's death dealing. Yep. Well, anyways.
Yes, it is. And I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Yep.
Well, I just admire you, my brother. I knew, I kind of had a feeling something was going on, but you're so professional. Excuse me, I had to get the door, or and you kind of say, but you don't. So you're always so professional. And on top of everything, I applaud you. I think we all applaud you and love our dear sister, and very grateful to you, my brother, for the way you take care of our dear sister, Susan.
Well, thank you, Anne Marie. So anyways, last night, I don't know if you're listening in last night on the program, we ended it early, late night, well, the program is called Watchtower After Dark. And we had to end the program early. This has been the second time we had to do this. We had unusual amount of people coming in, nasty remarks, all kinds of problems going in there last night. So I've got some announcements. I got some announcements to make about the Six Screens Network. After 18 years of being on the air, I want to share some things with people coming up at 3:45 today. So those that are concerned about the Six Screens Network and have been certainly individuals that enjoyed it, tune in at 3:45 today, right after my, well, a little, probably 3:45, and then we're going to talk about 3:30, 3:45. We'll have it right after our JW World News, and we'll talk about what the future of the Six Screens is. So hang in there, Anne Marie. So we've got Sandra coming in. Hello, Sandra. You're coming in from the United Kingdom. Hello. All right, I'm going to unmute Sandra. Oh, there she is.
I'm trying to find a way to unmute myself.
There you go, Sandra. Well, anyways, Anne Marie's on. She's the host of the program, and you called into her program last night. She also has a Sunday program, so we're looking forward to your story, Sandra. So, Anne Marie, take it over.
I just wanted to say I sent you a message to say I'm really sorry about your wife, and that you're a very good husband to look after her, and I hope things get better.
Well, thank you very much, Sandra, and thank you all the people too that have been sending me emails and text messages. Thank you very much. And I'm sure she'll be okay. We're just going to see what is going on with her. But thank you all for your kind words of encouragement. Thank you. It's all yours, Anne Marie.
Thank you, my brother. Well, happy Sixth Greens to everyone. Today is September 10th, 2023. This is our twice a month, every other Sunday, Sixth Green Sunday, where we are free to talk about spiritual things. We have several shows on the Sixth Greens on Sixth Green Sunday, and this show right now is basically ex-Jehovah's Witnesses share their walk, their experience was in Watchtower, what things are like. And we are very excited to have a very special guest. You may remember her from last night on the Touch by the Tentacle show. Her name is Sandra, and she agreed, bless her heart, to come on today. Sandra, I welcome you. I'm so excited because yesterday when I was listening to you, I knew that there was a story that needed to be told, and I didn't want to rush you. Now we have a whole hour for just you. Are you in England, or where exactly are you? Do you mind saying?
Yes, I am in England. I've lived in England for 35 years. But I actually came from Portugal. So I'm actually British and Portuguese.
Well, God bless you. I'm Portuguese, and my husband is Portuguese, and our family came from the Azores. So I have a lot of respect. Yeah, Portuguese people go through a lot. So we are all on the edge of our seats. I know we were last night listening to you, and I just want you to know we are so happy that you are on this show today. And please, do you mind taking it away? You were just really talking pretty well last night about your childhood when you were 9 years old, being isolated, not being able to be close to your parents, the kids at school that were friendly to you or were witnesses, and then telling you your sleep paralysis with demons. And, you know, poor little thing, you must have been so scared. And then they decided to start shunning you for whatever reason. Would you go ahead and in your own words, in your own way, please feel free to share with us your story. We are listening.
All right. I don't think it's all that exciting, but certainly has been quite. Yesterday, when you were talking about experiences with demons, I immediately thought of how it all started when I joined the Witnesses, or not so much joined the Witnesses, but actually got indoctrinated. So my family's Catholic. I can't remember now what I said yesterday, but my parents didn't have a very happy marriage, and of course all of this, and sort of your typical person that joins the cult. I had everything that a cult looks for in a person, except I was a child. And that's one thing that people don't talk much about is children indoctrinated children in primary school. And I often think that, you know, there should be a law against indoctrinating children in school. I really do, without punishing the children who are doing the indoctrination. So the problem isn't the children, really, isn't it? The problem is really the actual religion, or, you know, in this case the cult. But yes, so the family moved into a new town. I had no friends. And the very friends I made were the fleshly brothers and sisters. It was a big family, and they were all witnesses. And of course, they were the first ones to love on me after school. So it was in the playground that they used to, you know, just initially just wanted me to play with them. So I ended up not even looking elsewhere because I was quite happy with them. But then suddenly the indoctrination began. And they said, and they went from one extreme to the other. They just said, we can't be friends with you because you're not Jehovah's Witness. And then I said, well, Jehovah, and they all just went into complete shock, like I committed a grave in. And I said, well, I do believe in God. I go to church. And then they just told me how Catholicism was really bad, but they were really quite, they turned into bullies, really. And I was quite devastated because the only friends I ever had suddenly didn't want to know me. And then, of course, I told them, so they initially began to shun me, but not for very long, probably a couple of days, because I tried to sort of get them back as my friends. So I said, well, I want to know, who is Jehovah? Because they told me once that I didn't know anything about Jehovah. So they gave me magazines and books and things like that, and I started going to the meetings, and my parents didn't mind it. And that's when I started having sleep paralysis. I tell I actually don't know if the sleep, because obviously that's a very long time ago. I don't know if the sleep paralysis began when we moved into that area, or if it began when I was when I became friends with them, and they introduced me to the idea of the demons, because everything they connected everything to demons. So I was actually quite scared, and of course reading Glitch, because I used to love to read when I was a child, and the idea of the demons. I began to have sleepless nights or insomnia. To this day, I still have insomnia, but not as bad as I did before. My insomnia got better when I left the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses, and my anxiety and depression also got better. Sometimes it gets bad, and at the moment it isn't very good. But yeah, the sleep paralysis. So when I explained it to them, obviously I didn't have the words I could only explain what it was. It's only recently, when I left the organization, that I put it into Google. What happens when you half asleep, half awake, and you can't move it. It's like somebody's sitting on top of you. But I actually put it into Google, and that's how I discovered that it wasn't the demons contacting me. It was sleep paralysis, and that, of course you learn to, as you research a little bit more about things, then you understand. Oh, sleep paralysis actually can affect you when you're under extreme stress, which I was when I was 9, because I think I did say that I started getting alopecia, my hair just fell out. But a patch of my head anyway. It was literally just coming off, and I ended up with this full patch on top of my head. But that's what they would tell me, that whenever the demons tried to contact, so obviously they said that the reason why the demons were contacting me is because I wasn't a witness, I didn't have protection of Jehovah, and I was with the Catholic Church, which was full of demons, according to them. And that's how more or less I got indoctrinated into believing in the demons, and believing in Jehovah, and believing into what we need to call the truth. That's how it started.
So when you did start, I'm shaking my head. I'm kind of angry. I mean, you were very vulnerable, alone. I'm picturing you as kind of a lonely girl, very vulnerable, needing friends, and you're dealing with the security of your life, your parents being unstable, not close to you, and here are these quote unquote nice kids at school who basically are using emotional manipulation to control you. Now they don't know they're doing it, but all witnesses are trained to do that, conditional friendship.
And it's not their fault, is it? Initially, I was quite angry with it, but it turns out that it's really not their fault. They're trained to this day, they train children to because it's their ground, isn't it? It's their field, their ministry field, the schools, and they, of course, they learn from the parents. parents to initially love bomb people when they need support the most, and then they begin to, I don't know if I ever got to do this myself, but it's like emotional blackmail, isn't it? Emotional blackmail seeps in when they're indoctrinating people.
Right.
You just don't
And
know.
they know you're vulnerable. They know you need their friendship, and they know you need their approval, and that's why they beat you down. That's why so many Jehovah's Witnesses have such low self-esteem, because we're taught from the indoctrination to look outside of ourselves to get feedback to tell us who we are, for outside ourselves to tell us if we're good enough, if we're right, if we're wrong, if we're good, if we're bad. What I wanted to ask you is, after you started going to the meetings, you were about 9 or 10 when you started going to the Kingdom Hall?
I was 9. Sorry, that was my boss speaking. I was 9.
Don't worry. Okay, you were 9. What I wanted to ask you, Sandra, is with all of this, well, it's demons, and you have demon trouble because you're not getting the protection from Jehovah, so you need to come to the meetings and get under Jehovah's protection. So when you started going to the meetings, believing what you were taught, did you start having some relief with your sleep paralysis?
No, not at all. It didn't change anything. But I remember it was a bit strange that on one hand, I remember this so well, that on one hand, I wanted to be there because I just believed that, I'm really sorry, my dog suddenly decided to play with the squeak. On one hand, I'm just going to get it out of him, otherwise he's going to be a bit of a nuisance. Sorry about that. On one hand, I felt like I had to be there, like I belonged there, because I began to believe in God. My parents weren't religious at all, so I really believed in God. I began to believe in God when I joined witnesses when I was 9. And I felt protected, but at the same time, I used to look around with the adults, and I could see that I wasn't comfortable, basically, because of their behavior. So this was only a few years after Portugal came out of ban. So this would be 1970. 78, maybe 1978, and
so Sandra said, wait a minute, I don't want to skip over this, please excuse me, Sandra, but you said you looked around at the adults in the congregation, you began to feel uncomfortable because of their behavior, and then you didn't explain. Can you give us an example? It obviously must have bothered you.
Did you just see? I'm not sure.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm still coughing. If you don't mind, I notice when people give their testimony, they kind of tend to gloss over the most painful, emotionally disturbing, or emotionally traumatizing issues. They tend to just make a remark to the situation and then go talk about something else. And I'm just wondering, I'm picturing you, a 9-year-old girl, you're trying to get close to God. You've never really felt close to God before because your parents weren't religious. You know, your home isn't really comforting and stable because your parents are, not having a great relationship. You're not close to your parents. So now you feel like, oh, this is God. I'm getting to know God. I'm in God's house. And you look around and you feel uncomfortable at what you see with the behavior of the adults. Please, if you don't mind, you can give us some examples of what you were thinking, what you saw.
Yeah. So basically, what I need to explain is that I'm actually mixed race. I'm of mixed origin. And this is the one thing that always bothers me, and this is one issue that made me start looking into, outside JW.org, because there were several things that didn't fit quite well with me. But that was the first thing that I went outside JW.org to find out exactly why it is that there's so much discrimination within the organization, not just men and women, but also class discrimination and racial discrimination. And when I talk about racial discrimination, so I'm mixed race. I've got a lot of people look at me and they think I'm South American, but I'm not. So I've got various ethnic backgrounds. Not just one or two, but several. And so basically, I'm not white. And I remember with witnesses being all predominantly white, and these kids that indoctrinated me were actually African. And I remember looking at the adults and the other children who were white and being completely avoiding all of us. And we used to go to this sister's house, and she would make us all sit on the floor, and she had plenty of seating in her house, but she would make us sit on. We weren't allowed to sit on the sofa or chair.
Oh my God!
And then I do remember some white children coming in at one time. They came in and they sat on the sofa, so we sat on the floor. And I thought that was, like when you're 9, you feel things, but you don't think in language. Maybe now they think more in language because the world has evolved, but back then in the 70s, that you wouldn't, I wouldn't think in language. I would just be uncomfortable. But eventually, I thought, because we moved away again. And I didn't contact the witnesses, but I was very uncomfortable every time with whenever I bumped into witnesses, and they had a very ignorant attitude to people who weren't white. But this is Portugal, and Portugal. Remember that Portugal was in a dictatorship, and they had a dictator. And they had a lot of colonies, so they were very supportive of colonialism. So they've never been all that polite to people that didn't look white, right? So things are better now, and of course now we also know that whites aren't the only ones who are racist. Africans are very racist, and I've been at the receiving end of racism inside the organization. So whenever I talk about racism in the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses, it's not because people automatically assume that, I suffered racism from whites, but I suffered racism from whites as well as African West Indians, Pakistani, you name it. You can't just point the finger at one ethnic group, because they all have that attitude. And I never understood why is it that there was so much racism and discrimination within the organization. And towards the end, which a couple of years or so before leaving, I thought, how is it possible? I needed to, so I was using critical thinking, but within the frames of the code. It's not possible to be so discriminating and so vicious when you've got the truth and you're in God's organization. It didn't make any sense to me. And I started realizing that it wasn't. I used to be scared of my own thinking ability, because I kept thinking, and then I apologizing to Jehovah for this, but I kept thinking, but once they had this document, it was I can't remember Sam Heard, introduce this video about spiritism. So we all sat up a meeting on a Thursday night, and I remember thinking, please don't start showing brown-skinned people fall into witchcraft and stuff like that, because it's just going to add to the discrimination. It's going to reinforce the stereotype that people have of people of darker skin to be that way inclined. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah, I do. It's wrong.
and that's exactly what they did. The whole video was with Africans, African West Indians, South Americans, doing all this witchcraft, but particularly Africans. And I thought, oh, please don't do that. Because of course what happens afterwards is that brothers and sisters, well, the witnesses put you more into this or squeeze you into this pigeonhole that's got nothing to do with who you are as a person. And I just kept getting more and more upset as time went on. I know I've skipped the 41 years of my story, but it started that way with the discrimination in the organization, noticing that, and my life as a witness, as a believer, ended that way, realizing of all the things. But of course, I never knew that there was the CSA that existed with the Jehovah's Witnesses. And when I found out about that, because obviously, once I started researching about discrimination within the organization, just basically trying to find out if there were any testimonies anywhere on YouTube of people on the fringes of what we call the truth, just saying, "Oh, I left. I couldn't take it anymore because of so much discrimination." I thought I can't be the only one actually noticing the level of discrimination within the organization. So I went on YouTube to research. And then I just started, and that's when I just, began to look at videos that I didn't even think they were apostate videos. They were just different people. And then, of course, something led to another, and I woke up. I know I'm trying to cut it short, but I don't know, let's go from here now. But my waking up, that's another story as well, because when I saw something, because initially when I saw Jeffrey Jackson first, I saw Barbara Anderson being interviewed by ex-JWC, and I was like, oh my goodness, the Jehovah's organization is being attacked by apostate. And when I saw Jeffrey Jackson and the Australian Royal Commission, but with Jeffrey Jackson, I thought I was going to have a heart attack. Everything that I saw Jeffrey Jackson was a complete thing. He was an apostate that had infiltrated the organization and was trying to basically collapse just the organization. I really did. I went away to see all the badness in the organization, but I didn't wake up to realize that there's no such thing as the truth, and that Jehovah is not really God's name, and that I was actually in a cult. But when it hit me like a sledgehammer. When it hit me that I was in a cult, I remember feeling like something just took over me, and I passed out. I literally lost my senses. And when I came round, if it wasn't for my dog, I just started walking. I remember walking towards the window. I just didn't want to be alive to see, pick up the pieces. So, but because this is my dog and my responsibility over my dog, I just, I didn't do anything. But it was a very, very dark time when I realized that I was actually in a cult. But literally, the words in my head were, I'm in a cult. It's a doomsday cult. Jehovah's Witnesses are a real estate corporation, and we're slaves. And the whole thing was just so clear. We're actually slaves. There's no more, slavery of like African shackles, but our minds are shackled. That's what went through my head. And then obviously, you start watching other videos and testimonies, and everybody uses the exact same words that I came up with, but they didn't know. I realized they didn't originate from me. Like, for instance, the shackled mind, or that we're actually slaves to a multi-billion-dollar corporation. And it was really nice and comforting and reassuring to realize that everything that I saw, it's what thousands of people think anyway. So it was nice not to be the weird one in the room, if that makes sense. And I used to be the weird one in the room when I was a witness. I was a witness for 31 years. Indoctrinated 41 years, but an actual witness 31 years. And I was the weird one in the room, because I was very much ostracized and sometimes shunned, not because I'd done anything wrong, but because so many people just didn't like the fact that I didn't follow I didn't fit that JW mold very well. Does that make any sense?
It makes perfect sense. So many ex-witnesses say the exact same thing, Sandra, and I felt the same way. What's wrong with me? I never quite felt like I actually fit in, and I would try and try harder and harder. What's wrong with me? And I had no idea of the prejudice and the racism that there was in Watchtower. The only prejudice that I constantly saw was the higher-ups financially snubbing poor people like me and my brothers and my mother. We grew up in the project, dirt poor, absolutely dirt poor. And we were in a poor congregation, and everybody was sweet to us. But when we moved to a more affluent congregation, we literally were looked down on with a snooty look, down our noses. They didn't speak to us. They just didn't speak to my mother. And it was just so obvious. I've never felt such arrogant coldness in my life. But as far as racial discrimination, I never saw it personally. I never saw it. And I am so sorry you went through it. And you stuck with these people for 41 years? I don't know how you did it.
Yeah, me neither. And, a lot of people say, oh, how did you be? And I know we talked about this yesterday, I can't remember who said that. But it's not a case of stupidity. It's a case that it's not because you're stupid. It's just, and I think you're the one who said, because I said that I joined the witnesses, and you said that, I think you said that nobody joins the witnesses. The witnesses allure you into it. They recruit you.
They're called recruited. Yeah. Nobody joins a cult. They are recruited. Exactly.
Yeah. And nobody's stupid for believing it, because, and the last time somebody called me stupid for having joined the cult, I said, well, can you think of any time that somebody lied to you, you believed them, and you felt really stupid for believing, but at the same time, you could not believe them, and of course everybody has been at some point, right? They've been deceived. People get deceived all the time. It's just that with the witnesses, they tend to deceive people not at the best time of their lives. They have to be. You have to, and quite a few, including Alex Steiner, I can't. My short-term memory is really bad, so I find it quite hard um, to remember things word for word. So, but Alex finds one of Alex Stein's books about mind control and code. He explains exactly how you need to be in order to be into a code. They don't recruit people with a strong support structure. It's possible to recruit someone who's got a good family, lots of friends, and a good job, everything's going well for them. It's impossible because their critical thinking is very, very sharp. So when you're sick or you're going through stresses, or if you've got a weak support structure or no friends, or you're lonely, or anything like that, going through something, no matter how intelligent you are, even people with PhDs get recruited. But there's always got to be something that's affecting your critical thinking in order for you to push it to a side or put whatever things that you think, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. You put it on a shelf because you want to get on with it, get on with the truth, get on with learning more, get on with your brothers and sisters. You need time to go on a ministry to prepare for the meetings. And 31 years ago, we had 3 meetings, didn't we? We had our book study, the Thursday meeting, the ministry school, etc. And we've got the Sunday meeting, the watchtower, and the public talk. You're so busy that whenever you're stuck with something, you put it on the shelf. Now, almost like just put it there, and I'll look into that later. I used to do that a lot. I used to think, what, that's not. I don't understand that, but it's me. I didn't understand it's me. And in fact, there's one thing that quite a few. Stephen Hassan is one of them. So many Lila. I've got her surname, but she's another context, but she's really quite brilliant. I'm really sorry I can't remember her name. They all say the same thing, that all the decisions that you make are based on your indoctrination. There was a time I was actually, because I was so stressed out and distressed when I was a witness, I became inactive. And everybody thought I was inactive because I was missing morality. I wasn't. I was inactive because I couldn't cope with the environment of Jehovah's Witnesses. I just couldn't cope. I still believed in it, and I prayed for Jehovah every single day. I completely depended on Jehovah all the while that I was inactive. And whilst I was inactive, what I did is I thought I was so stupid, so simple-minded, that I wasn't understanding the scriptures and the literature, because I would read stuff and it didn't make sense to me. So I thought I was just a little simple-minded. So what I did, I went to college, so obviously being Portuguese, I wanted to improve my English, and then at college they said you don't need to improve your English is fine, but if you want to, you can join the national curriculum. And I did, and then when I finished my studies at college, in America it's called college, when we over here we call college, but it's school. So I went to school, and the teacher said you should apply for a degree at university. And I thought they were joking. It took them a whole year to convince me to apply to university. And I applied because I was completely convinced that no university in the country would ever take me on. And 4 of them did. And I just didn't know what to do with myself. And I just kept testing myself, thinking, this doesn't make sense. If I'm stupid, if I'm, have a limited intellectual capacity and a lot of other witnesses down, and I got put down all the time, so being a little bit limited in my mental capacity. I went to university. I wanted to do, when they asked me what would you like to do at university, I said I love criminology, but I thought I'm not very clever, and you need to be clever to do criminology. But what am I going to do with criminology in the truth and in the new system? But I thought, well, I don't think Jehovah's going to be very happy that I'm going to spend 3 years doing a degree, a bachelor's in criminology, when that's not going to serve Jehovah to any purpose. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to do literature because that's going to help me to understand the truth better. It'll improve my ability to understand what I read. And that's going to make me a better witness by the time I get back to the truth. I thought to myself, so I'm going to be a much better witness. And that's going to help me in the system to be more articulate, to help with people who come back to life. You know, this is the kind of like mentality. Now I can't explain this to just anybody. It has to be people who are once in. Otherwise, people think I've told this story to people who've never been witnesses, and they think, oh, are you okay? You can't talk about these things to not even to a psychologist because they think, oh God, that's such a place. So I ended up doing a degree in literature, and I finished the degree, and I went on to do a master's in literature and creative writing. And when I went to this, I thought I was ready to go back to the truth. When I went back to the truth made no sense at all. But this time, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And I remember the very first time that I thought, right, this is not right. And the reason why it's not right is because it really is a load of bull. It can't be right. And that's when David began to explain the overlapping generation. And I was like, there's something, I actually literally said it in my head, there's something wrong with you. Right? You as in David slave. I didn't think there was something wrong with me. That was the first time I ever rose a little bit above the mentality, the normal mentality of the Jehovah's Witness. And the first time, and I felt a little bit scared because he's from the governing body. And if you question the governing body, you're really sinning against the Holy Spirit. So I continued for a few years asking Jehovah for forgiveness and beginning to get a lot of headache, sleep paralysis, and all sorts of. My mental health really declined. I had very low blood pressure, and the low blood pressure went quite high. That's another reason why it went quite high, because I suffered sexual harassment and physical assault by a ministerial servant inside the Kingdom Hall, and the coordinator saw it and made sure I knew that I didn't have a leg to stand on if I ever came up to complain about it. And I did go through a lot of things, things like, for instance, I was a victim of fraud. I got a pioneer sister extortion £300 off me, and the others didn't help me out at all because I was a nobody, whereas she was she was directly related. She was related to the coordinator. Her dad was coordinator's cousin. They were all related, so they all look after each other, and it doesn't matter what they do. You just you're on your own. You can't make a complaint. Sometimes I think I should go to the police about this, but I couldn't because I believe in the truth. But anyway. anyway, you've got to. It's very difficult to tell your story about being one of Jehovah's Witnesses. I can tell you how I started and how I ended, but the middle of it, there's so much. So much. I was a pioneer, and I ended up with myalgic encephalomyelitis, which is ME, which is all chronic for 6 years. Loads of sisters suffer quite badly with ME, especially in vessels. And that always, I always wondered, why is it that everybody I know with chronic fatigue syndrome, and some of them, they're bedridden, they are very, very ill with ME. They're all witnesses, particularly women. And I always wondered why.
Wow. Well, I always heard that when mentally and emotionally you are going through hell and you're trying to convince yourself that you're the problem, then sooner or later, if the issue doesn't get acknowledged or looked at or fixed or dealt with, it will present itself with physical symptoms. That's why, unfortunately, and Rick has brought this out too, that it's very prevalent, more prevalent among the Jehovah's Witness women, the anxiety, the insomnia, the chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, intestinal disorders, stomach disorders. It's very, very common, and it's always their fault. And expressing, you're kind of touching on, you were sexually harassed. I don't know if you were molested sexually, but basically you're a nobody, so shut up and deal with it. Because of who the people were who were doing bad things. You've mentioned being taken advantage of financially, nothing you can do about it, just shut up and deal with it because of who you are and who they are. And it's the same shame. It's the same shame I've heard so many times in people relating their stories. But each person who went through the hell, their own personal hell in their walk in Watchtower, always being made to feel that something was wrong with them, being put down so much, criticized and judged and gossiped about, and even soft shunned, sometimes hard shunned, so much, even when they technically haven't done anything. They haven't been drinking, smoking, fornicating, lying, or anything, and they're treated like dirt. So their self-esteem is in the toilet. They're hanging their head. They're sorry. They try harder. And people just feel like, hey, spit in their face. That's what they're there for. Wipe your feet on them. That's what they're there for. And you go through so much hell. I'm so sorry, Sandra, but I'm so grateful you're telling your story.
And it's the hypocrisy as well. I remember, I know we've only got 10 minutes. I'm making sure that I don't go over time. But I remember, for instance, being constantly accused, because you do get accused. Obviously, when I actually became a witness, actually joined the witnesses from the age of 9 until the age of 19, so it was 10 years that I had that indoctrination. I would pray, but I would very, very rarely go to the meetings or do anything. So I was still a Catholic. But when I was 19 and I moved from Portugal into England, that's when I immediately joined the witnesses and got baptized. And I was very serious from day one. I became a witness from day one. They say you become a witness when you get baptized, but you don't really. You become a witness from day one. When you actually fully dedicate yourself to the religion, which I did. Some people don't, but I did. So I got baptized within a year or so of studying and going to the meetings on a regular basis, never missing a meeting, going on the ministry, and making it my life from the age of 19. And but what really used to hurt me was I was 19, but I was very naive in many ways. I'll say I was very courageous to have moved told me, see, because life at home was very toxic and quite destructive. So I just wanted to move out, and in order to move out, my only way out was to go abroad and work with children. So I came to England, and I immediately, in fact, I asked the witness assistant to contact me before I moved to England. There was this sister who I used to talk to, and she began to actually really convince me that the witnesses had the truth. And then she's the one who contacted Bethel and asked for a witness assistant to visit me when I arrived in the UK, and that's when I started. But it's amazing how throughout the years I was a virgin. I'd never had a boyfriend, never had sex, never. I had tried cigarettes when I was 16. I hated it. So I didn't smoke. I didn't drink. I didn't swear. I'd never touched drugs. To this day, I don't know what cannabis tastes like. And yet, the amount of time was just, like in get-togethers and everybody would just look at me and point. I felt like they would be pointing their finger at me and saying, but they would say, all about, with immorality, if it wasn't for the truth, it's probably be, I'd tell them I've never committed immorality, but they wouldn't believe me. And I would tell them I've never done drugs, and they would not believe me. They just,
I'm so sorry.
why do they just assume that people who come from the world are immoral, they fall into drugs, they're liars, they all these horrible, all the 10 deadly sins. And yet, I then find out, for instance, the amount of couples that got together because most of them cheated on their spouses. And yet, these couples that were very, very naughty, they're the VIP of the congregation, the last congregation I was in. There were a few couples like that they cheated, they committed adultery, they committed immorality, but then they got married and straight away they were well looked after. They were the VIP of the congregation, and these very same people, some of them did drugs, and these same people, not only did they ostracized me, didn't want me to be a part of their little VIP clique, and I could never understand why. Why is it that I was according to them, even when I pioneered, I was still spiritually weak, and I was still in the fringes of the organization, but I never was in the fringes. And sometimes I think apostates or whistleblowers or YouTubers that talk about, about the XJW, sometimes they will say that people who leave are on the fringes of the religion or the cult, but that's not really the case. It might be the case for some people, but many people believe more than those who are still in. I was a very, very firm believer, and until the minute it hit me that I was in the cult, I was 100% heart and soul a believer. And the amount of shunning in the ostracism and shunning, we talk about shunning with people who leave and their family shun them because they're disfellowshipped. But shunning doesn't happen just with fellowshipping. In fact, many people are not shunned when they're disfellowshipped. I think shunning is part of the culture, regardless of whether you're disfellowshipped or not.
Exactly. True. It's true. So how is your life now, Sandra? I mean, I know you tried to cover a lot of ground, but my God, it just sounds like it was a very lonely, stressful, nightmare life trying to be a quote unquote good Jehovah's Witness, and having your self-esteem so broken down that you were surprised that four different universities accepted you, and you didn't understand how they could accept you, and turning down a career in criminology. You probably would have been a great detective or whatever, because your brain is set for it, obviously, but you told yourself, no, this would be better. This is what Watchtower does to your brain. They hijack your personality and they hijack your mind, and they betray your natural, sincere desire to be right with God. And then they screw your life up. And when you're miserable, they blame you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And actually, I went through some vocational tests when I was at school, because my teachers wanted me to go through that. Because I didn't, I was a bit lost, and they used to say, well, you're a bit lost because you're too religious, your religion is, and of course I thought it was just demons trying to attack me. But I did a vocational test, and in the end, I scored very high for being quite technical. They said, and the lady who did the test, she said, you also scored very high as a problem solver. So she said that you're quite good with when it comes to research, solving a puzzle. So she said you should really think about either doing a computing science at university or anything to do with criminology. And I just laughed because that's one thing I've always been interested in. And it was weird. It was as if she was reading my mind. But afterwards, I thought, was this Satan? Was it the demon trying to tease me, play with me, and trying to get me away from the truth? I was very, very confused. But it's really strange how, to this day, I'm really fascinated by criminology. And that's what I was told I should do at university, study either criminology or computing science. But I didn't know, because I thought I was really, really not very clever, and that would serve no purpose with the truth and the new system. So that's a good testimony. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Just let's wrap it up. What were you going to say? Yeah. It's just it's an organization, no matter what your beliefs are, even if you want to believe in Jehovah, and go ahead, but it is an organization that absolutely ruins your life and your relationship with everybody that is meant to be your support structure. In my case, my family or any friends I might have, you get robbed of your social skills. So trying to make friends is very difficult because you don't know how to. But anyway, it's 8 o'clock, and I understand that time's up.
Well, just as a last thought, this organization, which is truly a cult, it destroys your sense of self. It destroys your ability to emotionally mature, and it makes you doubt yourself to the lowest degree. And anybody listening, whether you're a PMO or totally in the organization, or if you're a PIMQ physically in the organization, mentally questioning, if you will go on YouTube and put in BITE model, BITE, BITE model gives the 5 prominent clues of a cult and the tools they use and how it works. They control your behavior, your information, your thoughts, and your emotions. And if you just click on that video, the picture will show 4 fingers with a little face painted on the fingertips with black marker. That is a very quick, extremely informative video on how cults work the tools they use, examples of how they use the tools, why they work. And if you look at that, you will know that the Watchtower is an absolute mind control cult to the nth degree. Is there any last words? We need to wrap this up, Sandra. I cannot tell you how thankful I am that you came on. You were fascinating.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I mean, I want to end in a positive, and that is that when you leave, it looks very bleak, but actually you discover yourself and you'll be surprised at how good a person you are and how much you're capable of. And what you have to do, you have to learn to be the real person that you are, and then find out that the world is really not full of demons and hardship. There are some wonderful people in the world, worldly people, bad ones, and wonderful people in this world. And don't be scared. Anybody that might be listening and wants to leave, don't be scared. Just slowly begin to build up a new life, and it's possible at any age. I mean, I'm in my 50s, and it's not all doom and gloom. And I saw a doctor. I think it was with Old Worldly. I think it was. They interviewed a couple. The guy interviewed a couple in the. Well, I think it. I'm sorry, my memory is so bad. I think it's the Truth Hurts. I think the channel is called the Truth Hurts, and he interviewed a couple in their 70s, and I thought it was so inspiring, and it's really worth watching. Very inspiring. It's all good out here in the real world. That's all I have to say.
Well, Sandra, you are a treasure, and we all thank you so much, because as soon as we were listening to you last night, we knew we wanted to hear more. We really didn't want to rush you, but we were so overtime yesterday. One moment, Sandra. Rick, are you available, my brother?
I'm right here, Anne Marie. I'd like to go just a few more minutes. If anyone would like to speak up and say hello to Sandra, you can do that right now. She's calling in from the United Kingdom. Did you hear part of her story or all of the story? Why don't you give her a call, say hello to her, and come on right now. Hit *6 if you like.
Thank you, Rick. Would anybody like to comment on Sandra's testimony and what she went through?
Well, there's a number of people.
A
number of people are in there. But what happened here is today we came on late, so some people would have probably missed the program coming in. But it's going to be on the archive. It's also in YouTube. But we want to thank Sandra for coming in and certainly being a part of the program today. It's always good to have people coming in from another country. And a fascinating story you got there, Sandra. And I'm so glad that you were able to share that. Did someone want us to speak up? Go ahead. Go ahead. You're on with us.
Yeah, I just want to say I didn't hear every aspect because I was kind of busy doing other stuff. But what I did hear, I totally related to. And good for you, Sandra. All I can say is good for you, and thank you for sharing with us, because I relate to many things that you said.
Thank you. Hope everything is well with you.
It has actually been great with me. It's actually great. Yeah. And I know how difficult that can all be, but life is so much better outside. It's just crazy, but it is. So, anyways, thank you, and I'm gonna let you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing that, brother. Life certainly is so much better when you're out of that crazy, never-ending treadmill mind control cult that we just didn't realize why we were never truly happy, at least not for any definite length of time. Okay, we're gonna try and wrap it up. If anybody else wants to give a comment, now's the time. Otherwise, we're gonna wrap it up. Hello? Yes, go ahead, dear.
Yeah, hi, Anne-Marie. It's Connie. Hi, Sandra. I just wanted to say hello to you. I'm sorry, honey. I caught the very, very end of your testimony, but I'd love to go back this week and listen to it. But there was, I wanted to say congratulations for being out of the organization, first of all. And life can be pretty amazing. It really, really can. I just wanted to say something very interesting. Just the other day was Bob Gray's birthday, and so Rich and I, we September 6th was his birthday, and we called and we wanted to wish him happy birthday. And he lives up in Maine, and he had been in the Watchtower for many, many years and an elder for many years. And I had the opportunity to meet him down when I was living in California, in Sacramento, California. It was a Witnesses Now for Jesus conference. And he shared something so very interesting to me that is, I'd like to really just share briefly with the audience, because I was a publisher. I was just rank and file. I would temporary pioneer whenever I could. And I was in the organization for about 12 years. And we were all going to lunch, and Bob was walking out with me, and I was driving, and he was in the car with me. And he said, you know, I had been an elder for many years, and I'd like to share something very interesting with you that the average JW has no clue. And I said, sure, I'd love to hear it. He said, well, whenever there's a judicial committee meeting, he said, the average witness thinks that, well, once I go to meet with the brothers for the judicial committee meeting, I can explain my circumstances, and they'll be very loving and very kind, and they'll be patient to listen to my story. And he said, you know, Connie, that's not how it works at all. He said, I said, really? And he said, no. He says, I was an elder for many years. He says, it does not work that way. He said, what happens is that the elders actually have made up their mind before you even walk in that door to the judicial committee. And I said to him, wow, I was never going to put myself through that. And I didn't. But I said, you know, I even said to Rich, I said, when the opportunity comes up, I really want to say this again to the audience, because we know there are people that are JWs are listening in, or they're on the fence, or they want to leave, or whatever the circumstances are. But you don't really know how it operates until you get your head chopped off, you know, because, oh, you know, the angels are watching, or, you know, you're not going to have Jehovah's Holy Spirit in the organization. Well, God's Holy Spirit was never in this organization in the first place. I mean, that's a lie right there. So I just wanted to be sure and say that today. And I just wanted to say, Sandra, I will listen to your testimony, but thank you, honey, and congratulations. You know, your life can be pretty amazing, and it takes a lot of courage.
If you want to send me an email, you're welcome.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see my email address, but you are welcome to email me or message me.
That's wonderful.
How I can send any shared details with here. I'm happy to share. Can you see the chat?
No, honey, I can't. I'm just on the phone. We just called in, so I can only hear you audibly. I can't visually see anything. Yeah. But I will play it back, and I'm so grateful that you came on last night and you had the opportunity to share your testimony with our beloved sister Anne Marie, whom we love. So you have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful day, honey.
Thank you, you too.
Hello.
Thank you, Constance. Yeah, go ahead quickly. Let's go. Go ahead and comment.
So yeah, just really quick, Steve from the UK.
Oh, hi.
Hi. Just wanted to say to Sandra really quick, just wanted to thank you for your testimony. Sandra, I think you're a real inspiration, and I just wanted to say this to you. My wife and I have been out now for about 3 years. We're looking to hook up with XJWs in the UK. So if you're interested in contacting us, get in touch with Rick. Rick knows my email address.
All right.
He'll give you my email address. Sorry?
My email address.
No, you don't have to give your email address over here now. Just contact Rick. He'll tell you. He's got my email. And also, if there's anybody else listening from the UK,
if you want to do the same. My name's Steve from the UK. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, thank you a lot. Thank you, Sandra. It's been very, very interesting, and you're an inspiration. Steve.
Steve from the UK. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Rick has got my email address, so if you contact Rick by email, he'll pass it.
That'd be nice. It would be nice.
Yeah.
Only last 3 years.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All the best.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. We want to thank everyone for tuning in to Six Green Sunday as JWs share their journey in the Watchtower to freedom. And we just want to say thank you so much to our special guest, Andrew, who had an incredible story, a wonderful testimony, so encouraging to all of us, and all of us, we can relate. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sandra, for coming on. And we're going to Rick, our dear brother, JW World News.
Well, thank you, Anne-Marie. Thank you, Sandra. And yeah, we're going to go with JW World News Sunday edition coming up next right here on our network. But we're looking forward to the 3:45 today. That's about a half hour from now. I want to make a special announcement. If you were listening into the Six Screens last night, many people were disappointed with what I had to say. But let's see what they say today. We are making some big changes here at the Six Screens Telenetwork. So tune in 3:45 today, Eastern Standard Time, right after JW World News. So we will see you then. I want to thank Anne-Marie once again. We're going to end this broadcast right here